Hi, I'm Arthur. When it comes to the 40k setting, there's three major things you need to know about. There are people, there are aliens, and then there's whatever chaos is. I know I make a lot of jokes about the wizards and magic of the setting, but to be honest, the warp, chaos, and all that is one of the most interesting aspects of the 40k world. It adds a specific layer of weird sci-fi fantasy gunk to the whole package. You see the title of the video, we all know what's going to be discussed, but before I get into what the Chaos Gods are, I kind of want to discuss what the warp is, as I understand it at least. So the warp is the space between space. It is a layer of reality underneath our own, powered by the psychic unconscious desires of all sentient and possibly sapient beings. If you are born and have willpower of your own, and are Tau, or Votan, there is a good chance that you are corruptible by warp energies, as that is where they spawn from. The more a specific emotion is felt, and the stronger it is, the more it can take shape inside of the warp. For example, there is this one creature deployed by the Dark Eldar, or Drukhari, as they like to be called now, called the Chimera, or Chimerae? It's spelled weird. It is a warp entity that is spawned from fear. When areas of great fear and suffering are a thing, these creatures can just manifest and make it even worse. Yeah, just look at that. Just imagine you had a bad dream one night and then you woke up and found out that the sleep paralysis demon's actually there. They have no set shape, and their physiology isn't really capable of sustaining itself in a natural sense. But that's the point. As I understand it, they look like that because we perceive a creature that feeds on fear and is birthed by it to look like that. A skinless, predatory beast with features of the worst insects you know. It's pretty much just an aggressive tulpa. Now, a lot of other minor warp entities can come from that kind of situation, where extreme emotions give rise to extreme entities being created that are a culmination of those concepts. But there are some creatures native to the warp that aren't essentially just things that popped out of a nightmare that farted too aggressively. Parasites that feed on emotions, parasites that eat brains and plant eggs in your brain to make they're weird. Then we have chaos. Chaos is essentially like those fear-induced dog spider things I mentioned before, but on a larger scale. The most commonly felt emotions any sapient being can feel, the ones most universal to all beings in the universe, have been coalesced into four singular entities, with them gaining power primarily through people feeling the extremes of these emotions, but also through worship. This, my friend, is what birthed the Chaos Gods. There are four Chaos Gods, as I mentioned, representing four of these principles, these cardinal emotions and energies that sapient and sentient creatures can put out. They all compete with each other to gain serfs and slaves and cultists and cut great swaths of land in their name, and they refer to this massive genocidal crusade as simply the Great Game, where they go from universe to universe, take over as much as they can, gain as much power as they can, and once it's burned to the ground, they simply move on to the next one. Each one of the four gods can split portions of themselves into smaller beings, less complicated and therefore more single-minded in their desire to accomplish the goals of their respective god. These are simply referred to as, for lack of a better term, demon. Not like D-E-M-O-N, it's D-A-E-M-O-N. Demons are like a complicated concept of a creature manifested through pure thought. I'll put the definition on screen so you guys can kind of see what I'm talking about, but it's pronounced demon even though it's spelled Damon, so whatever. So who are the gods? As I said, there are four in total, and the easiest one to understand is Khorne, god of murder, blood, and skulls, seated upon a massive throne of brass and also skulls, next to an endless river of blood. Khorne is a god of rage, of hatred, but also of passion and bravery. To express any of those emotions would bring power to the god of blood. There is an old saying from those who worship him: corn cares not from where the blood flows, only that it does, which basically tells you everything you need to know about him. He wants war, a massive war, a war that could never end. He wants violence, endless violence. And he wants meat, big strong meat, beefy strong men, which kind of gives you an idea of what those who worship corn look like. An interesting fact about the universe is that chaos gods are known to actually grant boons and blessings upon those who follow them. So, say you worship corn, you decide to single-handedly slaughter an entire kingdom of people, like nothing but sword and shield. You kill every single one of them, erect a shrine with their skulls in the center of it. Corn will just be like, yeah, that was fucking awesome here. And then you just suddenly gain 20 pounds of muscle. Just superhuman strength out of nowhere, which makes a lot more sense as to why people fall to the chaos gods. So, when you think of a corn cultist, they're not exactly the disheveled, desiccated husks of people whom while away for ancient tomes. Corn cultists tend to have the exact same physique as Ronnie Coleman and all carry chain axes. Some of them just get super steroids made from the blood of ancient warriors. Yeah, the World Eaters are weird, jackals just got announced, and I'm going to talk about them when we get there. Next up, another god that is easy to understand. Slaanesh. The youngest of all the chaos gods, birthed into existence by an entire race deciding that mixing sex, violence, psychic powers, and every drug known to the universe would be a good idea. So yeah, the Eldar did a fucky-wucky and actually fucked a god into existence, and thus the Dark Prince was born. The best way to describe Slaanesh and what feeds them as a god is excess. Pleasure and excess. If you indulge in something to the point of feeling hedonistic, then you will please Slaanesh. Slaanesh craves greater and greater indulgences, and the only thing they request of their followers would be that they seek greater pleasures. Slaanesh will give you what you want, the deepest, darkest desires that you could have ever had, with no strings attached, aside from one: that you keep asking for more, and you keep going to greater heights to get that. Yeah, Slaanesh is probably one of the most dark and depressing hedonism gods in the entirety of fiction, at least from what I've read. If you read literally anything involving the exploits of Sigvald, which is one of the patron champions of Slaanesh, you understand what I'm talking about, and I cannot talk about Sigvald at length without feeling dirty. So with Slaanesh out of the way, now we're getting into a bit more of the esoteric concepts, with the third god we're going to discuss. Nurgle, the god of pestilence, the god of death, god of mortality and rebirth. There was a point in my life that Nurgle was probably my favorite god out of all four of them. I will say, he's still among my favorites, if not my favorite, but I will also say painting over 2,000 points of Death Guard can take the shine out of your appreciation of anything. I swear, if you start painting Death Guard, you contract some kind of Nurgle-like curse where whenever you turn the model over, there's another tentacle that's sprouted out that you need to fucking paint. Complaining about minis that are a bit too complicated aside, the reason I say Nurgle is a bit more esoteric is because, well, pestilence isn't exactly an emotion, neither is death. I don't know if it's ever explicitly stated, at least in the research that I've been doing. I could have missed a few things, there's a lot to 40k. But Nurgle is often implied to be one of the stronger, if not the strongest, chaos gods at base. The thing that comes up often in the literature is that despair and fear are the things that fuel Nurgle, but I'm going to take that a step forward and add my own 2 cents, saying that I don't think it's just despair. If you are alive, you, the person who is watching this right now, one day, you won't be. There's not a single sapient or sentient creature in the known universe that hasn't feared their own mortality at some point in their life. Even if you have the most brave Khornite cultist, at some point, they were afraid to die. With a fear so commonplace in all creatures, that's likely the despair that Nurgle feeds off of. which is why a lot of Nurgle is based around disease. What is more immediately a threat to your own cessation of life than a rapidly progressing disease as you can see your own body rot away? It just exemplifies this idea of fearing your own mortality, which is why when you become a cultist of Nurgle, you will become bloated with diseases, but the diseases themselves begin to nurture other abilities of yours. Like, say you want to take a tank shot to the chest, well, Nurgle will just make it so that you have 30 different hearts that are spread out throughout your entire body like tumors, so that if you lose a couple of them, who cares, you just got more. Your body will become so bloated with filth and decay that who cares if you lose an arm, you just grow a new one. For lack of a better word, what Nurgle grants you is a release from the pains of this world. To be eternally gleeful and joyful, often referred to as the Grandfather. Nurgle, unlike other Chaos gods, cares deeply about every one of his followers, from the biggest boy to the smallest man. So the last of the 4 Chaos gods is the one who gains power from the most esoteric regions of emotion. If I were to describe what powers Zinch in as simple a word as possible, it would be ambition. If I were to use a few more words, I would say ambition fueled by something other than self-gratification. If I were to be a dick about it, the main thing that fuels Zinch is nerds and nerd accessories. Yes, the god of sorcery, the changer of ways, the god of change. If you wish to change the world around you for whatever reason, he is the god for you. He's also a gigantic fucking asshole. One of his patron domains is just being a confusing dick. He gains power from schemes. It doesn't matter if they are for something grandiose, like bombing an imperial world and conquering it in the name of Zinch, or just a Machiavellian plot to steal someone's fucking boots. It pleases Zinch to have the ambition and planning to get it done. As a cultist of Zinch, how this impacts you is you just have to put your whole ass into things in terms of 4D chess and mind games with people. And if you succeed, Zinch may give you arcane might, the ability to shred your foes with a thought. Or you'll be turned into a gibbering lobotomite who's a mass of swirling tentacles and mouths under the command of someone else who's planning to steal the belt of the guy you stole the boots from. Yeah, being a Zinchian cultist is very much a game of rolling the dice to see who has the best schemes, which can either end with you being the strongest of all the cultists, or a puddle of gooey, angry mush. I have such mixed emotions about Zinch, because the whole purpose of Zinch in like concept is schemes upon schemes. It doesn't even matter if there's an end goal in mind, as long as you are trying to reenact like 3,000 IQ battle plans. He's content, or it's content. They're content. It's a giant ever-changing mollusk. But Zinch is just so weird when it comes to like helping their cultists and like, you know, their worshippers, because like you'll have like this guy just get super arcane powers and become the head of a fleet and become the leader of this massive cult, only to have him just turn into like a book. And congrats, now you're a book that belongs to another guy who gets more power because you are the spell book of. It's weird. So I gotta say, I love chaos as a concept, and the gods are such an interesting part of it. As per the usual, I'm just doing a bit of a rough overview of what the gods and chaos are, rather than going in depth, though I will probably go in depth for each god later, because the idea of like the lesser and greater demons and the hierarchical structure they're in, I think is like an interesting topic to go into. As per the usual, like, comment, subscribe, you know all that fancy stuff. And for those of you whom are going to ask about it, no, I'm not going to talk about lesser gods like Vashtor. He may be a demigod. He also has almost no lore right now other than being fueled by evil robots. God help us all for that one dork who's going to ask about Malal.